This is the Aftermarket Radio Network. Hey, thanks for tuning in and utilizing Remarkable Results Radio as an important resource for personal networking. Hey, I'm thinking back on when this episode was recorded at 2021, and could you do me a favor? This episode contains some very, very important forward think that every shop owner needs to know. Many shop owners do not know of a resource like Apex, and we're happy to bring a part of it to the industry. We're all in this together, so let's share this great content and help all ships rise. So consider this episode a Blitz Roundtable with Joe Register, Vice President Emerging Technologies at the Auto Care Association. We're discussing emerging technology, ADAS, electrification, the Right to Repair Act, and a whole lot more. You know, vehicles have never been more connected and complicated than right now, and even worse in the future. So it's critical to pause and learn about the intricacies involved that we know of today. Thanks to our sponsors, Apex and Shopware, for providing this episode. You know, this episode was recorded at Apex 2021, and the entire event presented leading-edge technology from suppliers, but also a great job of showcasing emerging technology of tomorrow, as Joe will speak to you about. Now, you've got plenty of time to plan for 2022, November 1st through the 3rd, 2022. Apex, now more than ever. Hey, how much paper have you touched today? Those are piles of time stacked all over your shop. Think of what you could do with all that time. Now, how many more cars could you get through the door? Cha-ching! It's time for a digital shop management system on the web at getshopware.com. Hey, a warm welcome to my friend Joe Register.
Carm.
Hi, Joe. The noise in the background tells everyone that we are at Apex.
The more noise, the better, which means there's more people here. Carm, we're delighted.
Well, I'm looking around and I'm really seeing a lot of action. I really think it's Tuesday and a lot of people are arriving and coming here. We're inside of Repair Shop headquarters, HQ. And my booth is inside of what's called Joe's Garage, where there's 8 working lifts and all kinds of action. And Joe is here because he's a great friend of the podcast. We have done shows in the past, and I got to tell you, I think they're so listened to, Joe, because they're all about technology and, number one, what you at Auto Care are doing, but the things that we need to know if we're going to repair cars and the challenges that we have with government and OE and all that stuff. One of the most critical things we have to pay attention to as an industry. Joe's the Vice President of Emerging Technology at Auto Care, and I think you're in charge of that. You've got a big display upstairs on Emerging Tech, and you have a beautiful red car. I'm looking at it with the
nice Beamer,
exhaust hoses out there. And you're doing demonstrations on secure vehicle interface.
That's right, Carm. Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, we've been here at the show showing SVI's evolution. Back in 2016, it was more of a dream. How can we find a way to be able to work with the OEs and establish a set of standards for, vehicle communications that we can all live with and, thrive over the years. And now it's gone through the entire standardization process. There's a set of SVI standards that some of them are created in ISO, some of them are created in IEEE, which is the Electronic Engineering Group, and then some in SAE. And so all standard organizations, bring different things to the party. And so we've had to learn to navigate that.
I don't know if you heard all these acronyms that Joe was throwing out.
Apologies.
That's okay. Trust me, Joe isn't meant to throw these out so that he sounds smart, because he is. But what that does tell me is the humbling part of the complexity. Detroit is not just creating this stuff. Japan is just not creating this stuff. Everything's got to work together. It's got to make sense. It's got to work. And the standards, I don't know if you used that word yet, but you talk about standards, and then we have to figure out how to fix this stuff.
Absolutely do. And it is humbling. I mean, the breadth and depth of technologies that are being introduced into automotive every day is just absolutely incredible. You know, cars communicate. They communicate internally. They communicate externally more and more. V2X, V2V, V2I, all of those acronyms mean vehicle to something. Yeah. Infrastructure or other vehicles, handheld mobile devices, roadside units. And it's important for people to understand that communication is increasingly a part of the decision-making going on inside that vehicle.
So if you're listening, the show notes, you know that on my website, we always publish the show notes. And a lot of listening apps, you can actually call up the show notes. We'll put down all the key talking points that Joe is driving. But the other thing is we're going to put a list, or at least a link to all of Joe's previous episodes. And so many of the things that Joe is talking about now, we have covered in depth, Joe, in other shows. And you're here to give us, number one, an update, to talk about what you're doing over in that booth. But I also, as the episode progresses, want to talk a little bit about ADAS standards, all these new sensors and controls that I know you're close to and you understand.
Terrific.
So again, when you take that vehicle over there and demonstrate SVI, what are you really doing over there?
Sure. So the great thing about the standards, the way they're developed, and, you know, as we've talked before, Carm, we had about a dozen engineers from different disciplines that have worked on these standards. The beauty of the SVI concept is that it can either be implemented by the OEs in brand new vehicles, or it can be implemented in a dongle device and actually attached to the existing OBD ports of legacy vehicles. So it isn't limited to just one or the other. And that really kind of levels the playing field so that, you know, people who have older vehicles can still participate in this communication. Without that, there really is no way to make that happen. Most of the information is very sensitive information. And as a result, whoever is transmitting it and whoever's receiving it need to make sure it's secure and that only the people who should have access to it are receiving access.
Wow, it sounds like right to repair.
It sounds like right to repair. Yeah, absolutely. And it's the whole reason we started down this road, Carm. That's exactly right. I mean, safe, secure, standardized, and direct access is what it's about. The consumer's choice is what it's about. Consumers should decide where their data goes, and it shouldn't be up to the OE to distribute the data based on their own plans and their own desires.
You know, of course, OE doesn't want us to have that data because they want to be able to force people in the future to, you know, you got to come back to us. It's going to be so easy to press a button on a dashboard and schedule an appointment because the car told you to do so.
You know, that's happening more and more every day. It used to be something we talked about, this is what's going to happen. But now, you know, it's actually happening to everybody who buys a new car, you know, that is using these systems. And the hook, of course, is that when you buy the car, it's free. But after you've been using it for a year, it's no longer free. So they're collecting data the whole time that's running. And they know where you go, where you park, how fast you drive, how fast you brake, even how much you weigh, Carm, because it's part of the calculation for airbag deployment.
Yeah, I know. We did a show with Hanvey on that. As soon as that thing came out as like a press release, I called Bill Hanvey and I said, you got to come in and do the how much you weigh show with me. So
I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and you probably gave him the speech, but today was a big day for right to repair. I think we were supposed to hear from the judge, but we're not.
Yeah,
as to what he decided, but it's delayed.
Yeah, you know, when the law was passed, we celebrated. We thought that was terrific, but then you know, we got hit with a lawsuit. I should say the Attorney General in Massachusetts got hit with a lawsuit, an injunction to keep it from being implemented. Because supposedly federal preemption. In other words, it would break things that are federally mandated, and that's really not the case. And so we had a lengthy court trial, and the judge was going through all the evidence. And at the end of it, Carm, quite frankly, the OE's experts had to admit that it really wouldn't make the car unsafe to be able to connect in the kind of technologies that we've standardized. So we made our point. The one probably the most difficult part was that the law said 2022 models. 2022 models are already starting to go to the showroom.
Right.
So that's going to have to change, but I think the rest of it stands.
But it was delayed for a particular reason.
Yeah, it was. There was an injunction, again, because I think this time it was the OEs in Subaru specifically that had, I guess some of their dealers in Massachusetts were telling people that the law would make their vehicles unsafe, so they had to turn off their telematics connectivity. And I think the judge wants to get to the bottom of it, Carm.
Doesn't sound too wise.
No, it probably wasn't. At the end of the day, we went through a discovery period where, they had an opportunity to look at all the information that kind of led up to the law. Yeah. Now, Subaru is going to go through the process to see if this was a coordinated effort on the behalf of Subaru itself, or if there's, independent actions by franchise dealers.
Got it. All the great noise in the background.
I love it.
I know. Is courtesy of Joe's Garage here at Repair Shop HQ, and I got this beautiful view, gorgeous glass
It's
studio.
a great view from your booth here,
and
Carm.
I'm in a fishbowl, right? and I'm looking around, and there are cars on lifts, there are tires being on and off, and so all the great noise behind us is the total romance of being out here live, doing live spots, and you don't have the courtesy of the sound-conditioned studios. So no. I hope you're all appreciating the ambiance that we're providing for you free.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've talked about having a simulated garage for a while now, and I just hats off to Mark Bodonsky at AutoCare for coordinating this with Bill Gastow, who is actually, the show coordinator. Bill has put this together and made it happen. So we just couldn't be happier. We even have the exhaust handling equipment so that we can keep the cars running and actually show live scans. So it's tremendous.
I have to tell you, I came down here and I looked at the concrete that was replaced, and then the lifts put into the floor. Incredible. And I looked up at the exhaust system, and I turned to Mark and I said, "What the hell did this cost?" And he didn't want to tell me, but all I started to think about was the cost of this and the commitment that Apex and AASA and AutoCare have made in this. So great to see, excited to see. We are seeing what the future of relationships and connectivity of people and the industry, this homecoming thing, we're seeing it. This is way off the charts, way better than I thought.
It's gratifying to see this because you never know. I mean, you know what it's been like over the past year or so, Carm, trying to figure out whether or not people are ready to come back to a live event again, right?
I got a brand new thing from today's keynote. 3 dimensions. That was our big takeaway, because we've been living in the 2-dimensional Zoom virtual world for how long?
The world of tactile sense.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, I'm a hugger, and I haven't hugged more than 50 people today, and it's only the first day of the show, because I love to see them, and I've met people for the first time that I've interviewed, which is always great to come here. Hey, let's jump over to ADAS.
Sure.
And calibration standards and what you're doing to work with SAE.
We had a vision when we started with SVI, and that was how to be able to influence the OEs to consider aftermarket requirements. We're protecting their brand, Carm. There's not enough franchise dealer bays to repair all the cars, so that the aftermarket is an integral part of the support for their brand after the car comes out of warranty, right? Oh, yeah. And so we just felt there had to be an avenue that we could pursue so that we could get that influence, and standards is the way we feel to do that. So as we started getting SVI in a mature state and started closing down on some of the development there, we started looking for the next opportunity, and the next opportunity that was clearly stated by our members was ADAS recalibration is a bummer. In many cases, we don't get the information we should. The requirements to recalibrate a car are ambiguous, or they're sometimes even flat wrong or incorrect. Some of the requirements to do the recalibration are unrealistic. I mean, one particular manufacturer was requiring 40 feet in front of the car to place a target. How many bays have you seen, Carm, that have 40 feet in front of the car?
So why would they come up with that challenge? And even at a dealership, right?
No idea.
They're going to ask themselves, we have to We have to add building a bay. We have to deconstruct our building.
This is a perfect question. Thanks, Carm, because I think this points directly to the fact that whoever wrote those standards and even developed the targets as far as the focal length really didn't think about doing the work. The whole thought about getting these cars repaired and recalibrated and what would have to be done once there was an issue.
But it was a scientist.
Oh, well, an engineer along the way.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
An engineer along the way who didn't stop and think about what's around the next corner.
That's right. And especially as the car ages, sensors are a little like us, Carm. As we get older, we don't see quite as well as we did when we were young.
Oh, did you know that I got a cataract done?
No.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Congratulations. I had one years ago. And it was life-changing.
It was. I can't believe how much brighter I see in the one eye.
It's unbelievable.
Anyway, let's not talk about old people's problems.
No, let's not, because we're going way too long. But the fact is, sensors do degrade over time. And so as a result, you have to adjust your recalibration processes in order to consider all those types of influences. Raising awareness, getting the OE engineers to understand how important those things are to the satisfaction of their customers, right? The people who own their brand of vehicle.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think this would be that hard to sell, Carm, but it's amazingly difficult in many cases.
Hey, Carm here. Now keep listening to find out what the perception systems are in a vehicle. Carm here. Well, I can't say enough about the quality of instructors and the high level of technical and management training that was offered inside Repair Shop HQ during Apex 2021. Hey, it's in the record books, but the great news is that show organizers for Apex 2022 are hard at work again, assembling the best and the brightest instructors and the most timely and needed training for shop owners and technicians. And now watch for a robust schedule of training and product demos on topics such as engine performance diagnostic strategies, how to be an effective leader, wheel alignment and ADAS calibrations, controller area networks, and using social media to grow your business, just to name a few. With this caliber of training, make sure Apex 2022 is on your calendar. Now, that's November 1st through the 3rd in Las Vegas. And together, let's make 2022 the year of growing sales, profits, and productivity for your business. Listen here for more Apex 2022 training and registration information. That's the sound of your staff's time being wasted with busy work. Listen, we all know time is money. The good news is you can take back a little more time and a lot more money by using Shopware's shop management system. Sound good to you? It sounded good to the other hundreds of shops that are currently running on Shopware. These are shops that aren't just surviving, they're thriving with Shopware as their SMS. You might be wondering, what do I need to do to get started? Well, Shopware is actually one of the best in the business when it comes to easily onboarding, so you can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride while their team is hard at work to get you up and running. Book a demo with my friends at getshopware.com today. So what do you know about dynamic calibration? Is that ever going to be, something just a little slightly less encumbering than
Wasn't
the
it supposed to happen last week?
Oh.
I think at the end of the day, a lot of these things are possible. Certainly technically possible.
And why have we been even thinking or talking about it? Just because we want an easy button?
Well, I think so. This is like electrification by 2 weeks from next Thursday. That's not very realistic either. Mm-hmm. So these things will happen, but they will take time. One of the things that can make dynamic recalibration possible in the future is the increasing capacity of the computer systems that are being put in these vehicles. High-performance computers that are really just unbelievably powerful in comparison to what you have at home or what you carry in a laptop. That's the kind of power that you need in order to be able to make those kinds of adjustments and decisions. And the other thing is that, when you're thinking about these sensors and the way they degrade, some of that is software control. So if you have enough capacity and you have enough of the right expertise to design these things, they can make adjustments as you go along. And that's really what the dynamic recalibration is. It's not magic.
Don't you think, though, we're going to have some kind of targeting?
Oh, I think so. I think eventually the people will understand that there's a bit both. There's a static calibration that's going to take place, and then that's refined as you drive the vehicle over time.
The car needs to see what's coming up based on a certain set of parameters, even dynamic. We've set the targets up. We press a button, and something magically changes in the cameras or whatever. Mm-hmm. But even if you're in collision, you may have to get a wrench or a plier out to adjust.
Absolutely.
Some right?
I mean, it's not even the sensors sometimes, Carm. It's the bracket. Bracket gets just slightly tweaked, and it's aiming in the wrong direction. But I think that in many cases, people are just beginning to understand the influence of back to communications a bit. You don't have to see everything yourself, right? So let's look at it as though you're sitting in a car and you have a passenger with you, and you may be slightly distracted, and the passenger sees something. He's going to go, Carm. That same thing is going to happen with other devices that you share the road with as you're traveling. And so it may come from a roadside station where there's information coming in, or it may come from another vehicle that says, oh, no, there's an accident up here, and it communicates that back. So that's augmenting your vision. And this is something called perception systems. One of my favorite group of people, Southwest Research Institute.
Oh, boy.
Oh, they're great folks down in Texas.
Yep.
And they have a whole section where they work on these perception systems. So, kind of an augmented sensory collection, as well as what the vehicle can collect on its own.
I think in the last episode you were on with me, we talked about them. I was in San Antonio a couple of years ago, and they were there with this vehicle, and I can't quite remember the full details, but I was impressed. And then I found out more about them, and then you came on and you talked about them. Are they a pillar in our industry?
They're unbelievable.
Yeah.
One of the best kept secrets as far as the way that the OE is advancing these technologies so quickly. Now, mind you, they're not just in automotive. They're in aerospace and healthcare and environmental sciences and everything else. But what they've done in automotive is nothing short of amazing. And very atypically, they don't want any of the intellectual property rights to anything they work with. As far as they're concerned, the people that they're working with, that's theirs.
Would they be like Skunkworks?
Well, no. I would elevate them to a little bit higher standing. Skunkworks typically are, some people go off, very talented people go off kind of on their own and do things totally isolated. But Southwest Research is very well connected to government and very connected to industry and very connected, quite frankly, to a whole lot of other institutions that are similar in nature. And so they really have a non-competitive feel to them where let's all share information to, an incoming tide raises all boats. Yeah. And that's the way they look at life.
The reason I brought Skunkworks up because, when I first learned about it, when Xerox many years ago invented the mouse.
Yeah, they did. Exactly so. And to the delight of both Apple and Microsoft.
Yes. It could have been the single best advancement for our finger today.
And actually, it was a pretty good sized organization, but it was kind of the think tank for Xerox. And Steve Jobs took a tour, and Bill Gates took a tour, and you can see the future is Windows and mouse and etc.
Yeah, I know. You had mentioned just a little bit ago sensors and control devices.
Yes.
I mean, God, that is one scary topic. What can you tell us?
Just think about it from a standpoint of your own body. The control module, is like your brain, right? And your spinal cord. Whereas the sensors are like your touch and, your eyesight and so forth. And so the information that's coming in that's being collected can be enormous. I mean, quite frankly, our eyes are not doing all the seeing. Our brain is doing a lot of the construction itself. So if you use that same metaphor and you think about it from a standpoint of very intelligent controllers working with these sensors, what they end up being able to process is significantly greater than what the sensor was able to do, what they were able to get from the sensor from an early stage.
I have this wild thought that every time I'm with you, you get my brain to go in certain directions and I have to control it, but I'm thinking about control devices, and I'm wondering if you know the answer to this. Do they sit down in a room and say, we need this piece of hardware, we need this piece of software, or we need this solution? And how does all of that get married together in a new sensor control device?
The birth of it is limitations in whatever is currently available.
The hardware.
So, yeah, hardware and computing. I mean, cars are increasingly more about the software than they are about the hardware.
I thought you can write code to do anything.
Well, you can write code to do anything if you have, a billion monkeys all typing on a typewriter will eventually write a novel.
Okay, so throughput.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is
speed.
Throughput, speed, and from just an idea, the human mind is trying to solve a problem. And it usually defaults to what it already knows. And so what happens is if you're trying to put something together that's never been together before, or trying to deliver some kind of information, the experimentation that goes on from there is always based on fact, whatever is currently available. It's a slow process to evolve that and to get to something else. I think that what we find is there's a lot of cross disciplines nowadays. So not everything that we're doing in the automotive business is coming from automotive. It may be coming from aerospace, it may be coming from other disciplines, and those kinds of synergies, like what Southwest Research can bring to the table, is, I think, expanding what the vision of a car is going to be in the future.
I got it. I see kind of where Southwest connects here. It's almost like if they're doing cutting-edge stuff, then it behooves that our engineers are paying attention to it.
Well, that's exactly right. The guy that runs the perception systems on behalf of Southwest Research Institute came from the healthcare industry, Carmen.
And think about our two models, male and female, and the changing technology and medicines that they're bringing to the market. And I hate to say that healthcare is a market, but it is.
Oh, it is.
That keeps us living large longer. Living large longer. Three L's. The 3 L's. I just came up with a new acronym for you.
Excellent. I'll have to make sure I put that away, and I'll be able to use that. I think everybody needs to recognize the fact that this exponential growth in both software and the application of software in what used to be mechanical business of the car going down the road, right, is something that is only a couple of 3 decades old. Mm-hmm. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that you used to push your foot on the brake pedal and there was an actual analog to a master cylinder, right? There was a physical connection to a master cylinder. We'd compress the fluid and it would go out to calipers and so forth. It's all by wire now. Everything is by wire. And so there's data coming through. You wouldn't be able to know how much pressure you were putting on a brake pedal just by trying to explain that to someone. But now digitally, all that information is coming in and being stored and repurposed. And so, they have a ton of data, probably more data than they can handle.
So one of the other thoughts that I had about the evolving networks is bandwidth.
That's why we're going to Ethernet.
Yeah, that was my next point. Where are we with that? I mean, how many cars are coming out that do have Ethernet?
Well, there's not a lot of them coming out today, but I think everybody is moving to Ethernet networks simply because the bandwidth is so much greater, and it's what we use for our computers, at work and home, and the Ethernet standard. Really not all that sophisticated, to be perfectly honest with you, in its rudimentary form. But it's just ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And it's grown and grown and grown. And so people have invested, decades in evolving that kind of a network so that we've got very high capacity capabilities now with Ethernet. It's going to enable us to, again, use this communications, use the data we've collected in the storage. It's going to start understanding your preferences of what you want to do in certain situations so that your driving profile is becoming more and more important. Yeah. And, that can be portable. That can be stored on your phone or some other device, so you get into another vehicle. It connects to the processor in the car and can actually start bringing your preferences with you.
Are you excited to see ASE coming up with an ADAS certification?
Oh, I am, absolutely, because this was a part that we really needed. But, you know, it's not just technology. It's like the part of the story that we were telling over here at the Right to Repair booth is it's policy and technology that really makes up the consumer's ability to choice, right? To be able to choose what they want to do. You have to have the policies and the technologies. So, yeah, I'm excited. It's a perfect marriage. I mean, we have to start, you know, looking through to the future and understanding that it's not just the same old in evolution. So,
yeah. You love to get up every day and go to work?
I do, and that's why I'm still working at my age, Carl.
Wow. When I grow up someday, I want to be like you.
Oh, stop.
I never want to quit.
Just stop.
I want to be on the cutting edge of whatever it is that I need to be on the cutting edge of.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I mean, quite frankly, this has been a wonderful, 6 years with Auto Care and going down this road, and it's always something new, Carm. It's amazing how much there is to learn.
Well, thank you for what you do. You are so critically part of the Auto Care Association, and I thank you for your friendship and always finding the time to come on and do an interview.
Whenever I can, you know that, Carm. It's and I always appreciate the opportunity. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Joe Register, Vice President, Emerging Technology at Auto Care. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Carm.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.